Hey folks, welcome back to our channel. My name is Nigel and this is Offgrid Van Life, where we look at van conversions, Offgrid Power and everything in between. Basically, we want to help you to convert vans or upgrade old vans, build out epic electrical systems and hit the road and find adventure and be able to power whatever you want to with your electrical system. So whether that's an induction cooktop, a coffee machine, espresso machine, or anything in between, that's what we want to help you with. So my name is Nigel. This is my dad, Roger, and in this video we are going to be replacing this. So this is my skylight in my camper van, and recently I was on a trip in France, and while we were driving down the motorway we were in sort of crazy weather. There was a huge storm that hit Europe, and we had this just a massive gust headwind that hit us, and it pulled up the front of the skylight. And I mean, these old skylights, so this van is nearly 20 years old, so it's a 2005 model, and all of this stuff starts to deteriorate in the sort of age, just with the sun damage and stuff like that. So I mean, this is just very crumbly already, but it pulled the front of the skylight up, broke the one arm completely, and has broken where it sort of clips. And so realistically I could patch it up and stuff like that to get it kind of limping along, but it's damaged enough that it's going to be a problem for it's just going to get worse and worse. So what we've decided is that we're going to take it out. So fortunately this is just a standard size, so it's a 40 centimeter square, so 400 mil square, very standard size. Pretty much all of the skylight manufacturers make that size, and I did contemplate making it bigger to put a bigger skylight in, but the trouble with these sort of vans and the way that they're designed is that they have battening or ribs that run, and then they've put plywood on the inside and then sort of a plastic or aluminium sheet on the outside. And realistically, to cut that and modify it is going to be quite a big job. Could affect the structural integrity of the roof, and it's just not something that I have the appetite for doing. So I decided just to stick with the same size. And also I have solar panels that run right up almost next to this here, and I also have a solar panel that runs right behind it here that goes like that. So there's really not a lot of room to expand unless I wanted to cut over that way, which I don't want to do. So yeah, we're going to take this down. First thing is to undo all of these bolts. They are a Torx head screw, and they screw into the top, and essentially it kind of sandwiches the two in like that. I'm going to take those out. We'll probably undo the actual lid so I can stick my head up here to see, get up on a ladder outside and stuff like that, and we'll crack on. But essentially we're going to need to cut the old one out, clean the surface, probably use alcohol and blue roll type thing, just rub it. Not going to use water because that's going to take ages to dry. At least the rubbing alcohol will evaporate. We'll take the cover off, check it. There'll probably be Sikaflex or some sort of sealant we'll have to cut on the outside. We'll clean it all up, put the new one in, reseal it, let it set before we then put the bottom cover on. And yeah, I mean, the one that I'm going to install is the Dometic, I think it's Dometic, the Heki something. I can never remember the name. I'll give you the proper name shortly when I get it out here. But yeah, I've installed them before. They're great. They're also clear as well. They're slightly tinted, so it's not just completely see-through, but better than what we have in here. At least we'll be able to see the sky, and we'll get sort of really good light through it. So yeah, we're going to get after that now. So as you can see, that's where it's super brittle. That stuff there is just really sun damaged. And then this arm here is where it broke completely. So that's off completely there. So this thing, when we were on the motorway, this thing was just flapping around, and I landed up having to tie it down, and I tied it to the bed there to be able to continue with the trip and drive. So we started by taking the cover off the bottom of the skylight. So opted not to take the fly screen off. That's why the screwdriver is at such an angle there, so just to get access to those screws. Realistically, when you install these old style ones, you really needed to take the fly screen off that's hanging there on the left hand side. But yeah, I got all the screws out, 12 in total.
Pretty straightforward. Generally speaking, if these are installed correctly, this part of the skylight should not be glued in, so it should just be a matter of undoing those screws. So those screws go into the back of the top bit. Then started on the top bit, so the next thing was to actually get this off, and so this is the bit that's glued on. So usually there's a bead of some sort of adhesive, Sikaflex or something like that, and so the easiest way that I found to do this was actually just to use my Swiss Army knife and to push it in alongside the roof like this. So I just went all the way around carefully doing this. So you'll see before I did this, I tried to lift it and started lifting the actual aluminium sheet on makes that sort of sandwiched board that makes up the roof. So obviously you don't want to do that too much and damage it, but yeah, I just went all the way around this, as you can see here, with the Swiss Army knife, and it's pretty close to sort of as close to the metal, the aluminium sheet as you can get a blade. I don't think a Stanley knife would really work for this, or it probably would, but this was ideal just because it's a bit longer than a Stanley knife, so worked really well. Went all the way around and then was able to just lift this right out of the way, and yeah, came out pretty easy. It was pretty easy just to cut out. Had to go over a couple of times, more than once. Then I had a bit of a mess here to clean up, so again I just used the Swiss Army knife. Again, I use this knife for everything. You can see it's covered in foam and all sorts of stuff, but it's super handy. And I just scraped off the adhesive that they had on there. It was some sort of rubberized adhesive, similar to Sikaflex. I was fairly careful with this because obviously I didn't want to remove too much of the paint off the actual aluminium. So although the aluminium won't corrode as much as steel will, it still will corrode, so you want to avoid removing too much of the paint off. So I just went around and took the majority of this adhesive off so that I had a reasonable surface to work with. I then also knew that I was going to be attacking this with alcohol rub, and knew that it would get a lot of this sticky stuff off there and have a good surface to work with after that. So once I got the bulk of it off, I then started attacking it with the alcohol rub, and started to see good progress there. Obviously a couple of dry fits here and there wherever I needed to just check that everything was going to be alright. One of the things that I mentioned before was that I didn't really want to have water on here with soap to clean it up much, just because I didn't want to introduce that moisture. But once I'd started, I realized that actually the alcohol rub is not going to remove the green algae and stuff. Had to do a bit of work on the corners just because they were fairly round. I needed them a little bit more square to get the thing in properly, to get the new skylight in properly. Carried on with alcohol rub, getting that surface really nice and clean. Try to get as much of the old adhesive off and gunk and gunge that's there. There's my dad popping his head out just to inspect. He was pretty impressed with the condition of the roof. It was still in great condition. No signs of moisture or damp or anything like that, so pretty chuffed with that. So as you can see here, I've started attacking this with some warm soapy water. I went very liberally on the water, so just literally enough that I needed just to clean around where the Sikaflex would be going. Then attacked it with more alcohol rub and really dried that out with the blue roll. Got it as dry as I could possibly get it. We then had a break for lunch. We had a really dry day as well, very sunny, so left that for half an hour and came back and I knew it was bone dry sitting in that sun. Then attacked it with Sikaflex. So unlike the previous one that I installed, that I have a video on this channel, where I was doing it on the project van where you're working with the ribs. Here it was just a simple bead. I put quite a lot of Sikaflex, quite a big bead there, as you can see, probably 1 centimeter in diameter. Made sure that I had a lot of Sikaflex so I'd have good contact and really no doubt as to whether this thing's going to glue down nicely and not have a problem. So put it down there, didn't push it super hard because obviously I don't want to force all of the Sikaflex out. The whole purpose is that you have the Sikaflex, then if you have a reasonable layer, let's say sort of 0.5 centimeter or 3 mils, that's going to offer really good adhesion and also obviously your sealant, which is your most important. Then put a bead around. A fairly liberal fairly liberal bead all the way around, because I really don't want this thing leaking. I'd rather have a little bit more sealant there than go sparingly and have the opportunity for leaking. And then I just attacked it with my fingers. I know you can get all sorts of tools and things like that, and guys use those sort of angled things to get the angle right, but I've just found it to be the easiest just to use my fingers.
Okay, so we've got the top bit, the outside bit glued on. So we use Sikaflex, and if you watch the video, I did a video a few months back where I put the same skylight onto our project van. And so, as promised, this is the Dometic Mini Heki style 400mm square roof light. They call it a roof light, skylight, whatever. Anyway. When I did the other van, obviously because we were working with the sort of ribs in that roof, an uneven surface, I just piled in Sikaflex to kind of make up that gap. Obviously with this roof, because it's much easier to install, the hole was already there and it was just a nice, clean, flat surface. I just put a nice, neat little bead around, fairly big bead, so probably 2 centimeters or so. Quite a lot of Sikaflex. Uses almost a whole tube of Sikaflex to seal one of these in properly. Pushed it in, just started beading out around the edges, and then put another bead around and sealed that off nice and neat. So pretty chuffed with how it looks. Pretty confident that it's not going to leak. So we're going to leave that to set. So we haven't even pulled this in to close it properly yet. We're just going to leave it to set. Also not compressing it much. So just literally let the Sikaflex settle, push it down a bit so that it beaded out a little bit around the sides. Not really compressing and pushing it down, because obviously if you do that, then you've got a very thin layer of Sikaflex and you potentially lose all of the stuff that's going to hold the water out and seal it in. So we're going to leave that for a few hours to set, and then we'll come back and put the rest of this back together. So it takes this guy, which bolts just with some screws from this side into the top, so basically sandwiches the paneling of the van, and then it has a fascia that has the sliding cover to block out light, and then insect shield as well. So we're going to let that set for a few hours and then come back. We also just need to trim, so there's these finish things here in the van, so we're just going to pull it down slightly, mark where we need to cut, and then cut it very neatly with a Dremel tool on both sides. This one is going to be a bit more tricky, I think. That's fine. So we just cut it right on where the fascia is going to go, so we can get the fascia nice and flush right up against this here, and then it's going to be looking great. So pretty chuffed with how it's looking.
So when you buy these Dometic skylights, you can choose whether you want it for a roof that's, I think it's between 40 or 60 mil thick. And I didn't know how thick the roof was on my van, so I opted to go for the thicker one, so the 60 mil one, because I knew that if you go for the thicker one and and it's and your roof is not that thick, i.e. it is 40 millimeters thick, then you can just cut down these things like I'm doing here. So you just cut those down and then it works fine. So that's what I landed up doing here. Pretty straightforward. It was at this point that I couldn't help but think to myself, why did I spend so much money on some of the best DeWalt screwdrivers and drills that I could buy? And here I am with a handheld screwdriver busy putting these screws in by hand. I still don't know why I didn't use the power drill, but yeah, here we go. And I got it done. So there's that. Then for the fascia, you have to put these little clips all the way around. It's like, I think 3 or 4, no, actually 5 per side, so quite a few of them. And these are what hold that fascia on. They have sort of little teeth that go into a groove, and that's what holds it on. I would probably recommend not taking this on and off multiple times, because it's going to weaken those little clips, and then you might have the fascia falling off while you drive. But yeah. It's pretty straightforward. You just stick it in there, literally just those little teeth catching, and that's it.
Okay, so that's right there. And that is right there. And there we have it, folks. Looking pretty good. Had to cut that bit of trim there and on the other side just with the Dremel just to get it looking good. Just a quick test here to make sure. Sorry? All right, there we go. I got this thing fully installed. Pretty happy with that. I really like these skylights, the Dometic Heki, whatever it is, some funny name. But yeah, it looks really good. Tested it with water from the outside, just sprayed it down with a hose fairly aggressively, and not a drop came through, so pretty pleased with that. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on it and just make sure, but I'm pretty confident that we've sealed it in nicely. And it's looking great. I'll close it up, black it out. It's really good. Stoked with it. So yeah, hopefully that has been helpful in some way, watching the process of removing the old one. But the important thing is just to go carefully cutting the rubber seal around where they glued it in, the last one in, and making sure that you don't delaminate all of the layers. So obviously the aluminium sheet on the outside of the roof and stuff like that. And then just follow the standard install guides. It's pretty easy when you don't have to cut the hole in. Usually the hole cutting part is probably the most stressful, or the bit that you need to get right, because once you have cut the hole, you can't go back. So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.